You're listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power in truth. And we believe that, and that's why we named this show Power Talks. Welcome this morning. I'm Beth Ann, and say good morning to Melody Cedarstrom, my co-host, as we try our very best to empower you with the truth.
Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, listeners. Every time I say good morning, listeners, I think of the Robin Williams, Good Morning Vietnam. But
oh, yes. That was a good movie. That really was a good movie. I found this quote yesterday. Actually, it came from one of my listeners on the other show. And I thought, well, this is just perfect for us to start out with today. This is a George Orwell quote. And because we try to focus on truth. Now, people, we're just two girls, and we're trying our very best to sort through all the news that we get from different sources. And we try very hard to make sure that what we have is not fake news, that it is the truth to empower you. But here it is. This is George Orwell. The further a society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. Mm-hmm. And do we not see that going on today? Just rampantly in this nation. And I thought, well, that was just perfect, and I think that's why my listener sent it to me, and I thank him for that. Anyway.
Absolutely, and I do believe George Orwell was part of the elite and so forth, and I think that's why so much of his writings and so forth are just so in tune to what's going, and you can apply it today, or, maybe it's just, things that have been applied, throughout the centuries, and it's just, just very today. It is just so very today.
You can quote just about anybody at any given time, and it can either be a good thing or a bad thing. I've heard quotes from some of the presidents we know were not really good presidents, and I thought, they said that? I can't remember them saying anything that brilliant. So I think you can take any quote from anybody at any given time and see one way or the other on it. And I was thinking the other night when I was listening to my mind is just different. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. But when I was listening to Dinesh D'Souza, I was wondering, do people that get quoted, do they think about what they're saying, or is it something that just comes off the cuff? I've got some good one-liners every now and then, but I don't think about them. They just kind of fall out. And I just kind of wondered, was this a real deep thought that George Orwell thought about for a long time, or is it just something that came to him and it just fell out? I know.
Well, what's interesting, though, too, lots of times we hear these quotes, and I'm guilty of it. I'll see, so-and-so said this quote, and then when you do some investigations on when he said it and so forth, sometimes it's really not from that one particular person. It's actually from somebody else. And, and it's
plagiarism, that's Joe Biden.
But I mean, people, I think with the internet, and I think it's done innocently. I don't think there's any ill will at all. It's done just innocently. We read things, we remember part of it, and we think, and then we share it with someone. And it's kind of like when you were a child. Remember, we'd sit around in a circle, and you'd whisper something to the one next to you, and by the time it got back to you, it was close. It wasn't even close to what you started out with. So I think that happens a lot, particularly with the internet.
There are so many things. I've got we're really off topic. We had not planned to talk about this at all. I have a book that my husband gave me several years ago for Christmas and I haven't read it all the way through, but there's different quotes in it. And some of my listeners really liked it. And then one of them called me and he says, look at page such and such and read what it says about necessity. Now, how many times do we hear that this is necessary coming out of D.C., all those elected officials that like to rule over us? And this is coming from William Pitt, Earl of Chapman. And it was a speech that he gave to the House of Commons back in 1783. On the word necessity. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. And I thought, That is an awesome quote for necessity.
Yes.
So appropriate in this day and time when we're constantly told, well, it's necessary that we have affordable health care bill. It's necessary that we do this. It's necessary that we do
have
that.
To do that.
And anyway, it's necessary that we watch the clock and continue with the show here.
I just wanted to update those fires in California. There's now at least 17 dead, more than 180 missing. There's been over 2,000 buildings that have been destroyed, and they're expecting some more heavy winds or strong winds today. The winds sort of stopped a little bit overnight, as winds usually do, but they're again expecting them to pick up steam today, so we're not sure what that's going to bring to these regions in California that have just been devastated by these fires. And boy, I'll tell you what, when you see these pictures of these neighborhoods, I mean, and it's just not homes that, somebody who has, 100 acres on, some property and they build a house. Yes, that's some. But I mean, these are neighborhoods. These are city neighborhoods,
Oh, I watched last night. I saw some of them, and oh my gosh, the whole neighborhoods are wiped out. The cars, the vehicles, everything. I mean, just nothing but ashes. Nothing but ashes.
Yeah, there's a fresh round of mandatory evacuations that are continuing today. The two biggest wine country fires, known as Tubbs and Atlas, grew overnight as conditions are worsening. And those two country fires, they've combined about 54,000 acres. And I've even heard that, it's really hard to put, the number of acres together. And these fires are not contained as yet. So one couple had to jump into their pool as flames rushed across their land, taking occasional gasps for air as flames lapped at their backs. So again, it's terrible. And again, so very little discussion on those.
Yeah, we're all discussing everything else that America right now is facing. This nation is facing so many things that it's unreal that they're not talking about what's really important. We're chasing after a pervert, talking about that and talking about how other people aren't talking about it, and and not discussing, what's going on with the hurricane victims. They're in a recoup mode. Can we not see how they're doing?
Can we not see how they're doing? No comment coming out of those areas at all.
They don't have to spend the entire show on it like they were. I mean, the week of the hurricane, that's all there was. There was no other news. But I'd like to go back and see how our American family is doing. I'd like to go back and see how they are doing. I would like to, we need to be helping these out here with these fires. We need to, there's only so much, America can only do so much, but we are a generous people, and we can step up and do something. If nothing else, get on our knees and pray, and that we should be doing. But they're not covering these things, and it just, it's really sad. Even the ones that say they're not fake news, they're still covering stuff that, okay, tell the story and go on
and
with
move on.
Move on. This guy is a pervert. He's a horrible person, and yes, Hollywood knew about it. They're all the same way. I mean, good grief. Their lives are evidence that they're all just a little odd. They're selfish. They don't care about anyone else but themselves. And, they really have no authority to speak for the rest of us. And that's what they've been trying to do. But this guy...
I don't know what yes, it's a big deal. Yes. But on the other hand, everybody knew, as you said, everybody knew about it. And it's been going on for years and years and years, and everybody chooses. And trust me, it's just not the people in Hollywood who knew. I mean, look at Penn State. Everybody knew Sandusky was what he was, and everybody just chooses to ignore it, and until something happens. And so it could have gone on for another 20 years if somebody didn't pick up the story. And I mean, my gosh, he paid out how many millions of dollars to these girls, and always with the you can't discuss it. You put a gag order on it so nobody can discuss their what they get and so forth. I mean, and it's just like, and the rape, yeah. I mean, if he actually raped women, if it isn't out of the time frame in which he can be charged, he should be charged for rape. I mean, that shouldn't go with that being a criminal offense, you know. But for women who put themselves in these uncomfortable positions in order, and I don't mean, that's not a pun, but in a position to where they could be taken advantage of just to promote their careers.
Well,
You know?
I think they tried to get in. I'm not defending them exactly, but they are very young, and they try to get into the circle that will promote their careers. They played a clip of a conversation. I guess she taped it with her cell phone, of how she kept trying to get away from him, and she finally did. He finally let her walk away. Well, fine then, go. Well, you know, that's the end of their career, because he'll make sure that nothing ever goes. But the whole thing is the hypocrisy of Hollywood and all these elite. You know, the Clintons knew him. They hobnobbed with this guy, of course.
Yes, they all do.
We know what Bill Clinton is. And, you know, so, but the late night shows, they're all quiet. They're none making jokes. If that had been somebody in the Trump administration, it had been blown up. But no, not if it's one of their own. They protect it. The liberals protect their own. They are so much better at that than the conservatives. They don't. Well,
the whole point is, the reason they're focusing so much on this is because of Trump, hoping that they can attach his past to this to some way.
Well,
to me, I think that's, and I'm not approving that, but I think that's what the left is doing, what they're trying.
Well, the left
perhaps
isn't
that they're trying to
it.
accomplish it.
The left is ignoring it. It's the alternative news like Fox and that's covering it,
I've seen it reported other places. Perhaps not to the degree.
Not to the degree,
but
and they're not talking about it on
places. And I have also actually seen them. I've seen other places, and I'm not, again, defending them, but I've also seen other places where they're actually questioning why it took Obama and Clinton so long to make a comment about it. Now, you're right. They don't spend 15, 20, 30 minutes on it. But they are bringing it up and talking about it. But
well, they're not
on
the
late
night shows.
Not to the degree that they should.
They're not on the late night comedy shows. They're still going after Trump for this and for that. And remember what they did when his audio came out of what he'd said back there with that guy.
Yeah.
And like that was just the end of the world. And we know that that's Hollywood's life. That's how all of them live. That's their life. And the hypocrisy.
Yep.
But the real hypocrisy is they claim to be the defender of women. And they are the biggest users and abusers of women that there possibly is. And, not just Hollywood, but liberals in general. Abortion, it's the using of women. It's abusive.
Yes.
All the other things that they do, to demean women, like with the Affordable Care Act, demeaning them as if the only thing we think about when we get up in the morning is how on earth am I going to practice birth control today, and who's going to help me pay for it. I didn't think that in the mornings when I got up. I was busy trying to get a family ready and get them off to school, and I wasn't thinking about any of that. Thinking about getting what I was going to fix for breakfast, for lunch, for supper, and all that good stuff.
What's my goals for today?
Yes. To survive.
To survive.
As a lone female in this house, I'm going to survive.
We have a caller we'll have to get to, Arthur, when we come back from our break, so make sure you stay on the line.
Okay, and we will settle down. We kind of got chasing a few rabbits there, but we will settle down. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218. We do have several important topics to cover. 717-300-1218, and Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more, using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have turned to listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning, and we're going to go straight to the phones because we made him hold a little while. Arthur in Illinois, how are you today?
Good morning, Arthur.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies. How are you today?
Just fine, thank you. What do you have for us?
I want everybody that's hearing my voice right now to go read a book. It's called The Clintons' War on Women. It's available at Barnes & Noble, or I'm sure Amazon's got it too, but yeah, it's got over a couple hundred pages of what those idiots are really about. And yeah, Bill's sick. He's a sicko. That definitely.
Yep, they are.
And from what I understand, Hillary intimidated all the victims that he raped and tried to have them killed by the government or the CIA or whatever if they came forward. So he did it anyway. Good.
Yeah, she called them bimbos. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah, I got news for you. Hillary is a bimbo with a capital B.
Yep.
So, but I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. You know, if America would read that book, they would learn a lot. Believe me.
Okay. All right, Arthur. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Arthur.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, ladies. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you. God bless.
You know, I came across this article here. It's from The Sun. And this is the first time I heard this, so I'd have to do a little more investigation on it. It's come out today. But this is the first time I heard where scientists are puzzled as Europe is mysteriously showered in radioactive particles. Have you heard that?
No.
German scientists says that there's a slight increase in the amount of particles of the isotope ruthenium-106 in Germany, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, and France. German scientists says there's been a slight increase in the amount of particles. The low levels of the stable isotope do not pose a threat to human health. Of course not. But the rise has baffled them. It's used in chemotherapy. to treat eye tumors, and is also used in radioisotope thermoelectric generators, which power satellites. Isn't that interesting?
Interesting. It's very interesting.
And there's a boatload of satellites up there. Boatloads.
Boatloads of satellites.
They said that the spike could not have come from a nuclear accident. New analysis of the source of the radioactive material are likely to indicate a release in the southern Ural, but other regions in southern Russia cannot be excluded. They're actually blaming the Russians. I think it's the Russians.
Well, the Russians probably wish they had all the power we keep giving them.
The origin of the measured ruthenium-106 is still unknown. By declaring the spread of the radioactive substances as the atmosphere can be limited in the areas in which the release could be. And actually this was reported back in February. This is the first time that I've heard that. And actually there was I guess it was originally reported these traces of the iodine-131 were found in Norway, Finland, Poland, Czech Republic, Germany, France, and Spain in January, and the public were not immediately alerted. So
it's only in those areas? It's not global?
Well, there's two different isotopes. You have that lutetium, which was found in the regions of Germany, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, and France. But then this other isotope, traces of iodine-131, were found in these other countries, and these radioactive particles are produced by atomic bomb explosions or nuclear disasters such as Chernobyl or Fukushima.
Okay.
So you got two different things going on that they're finding in the air. So it's just an increase in radiation, I guess, overall due to these various particles that are being, and not a lot of information is being given to the public. So it'd be interesting to know what we have over here. Yeah.
I was going to say that would be very interesting. We sure do give a lot of chemotherapy, don't we?
We certainly do, and there's an awful lot of satellites, and that's what I always said. All these people who, claim and think that there's global warming and so forth. Why don't you check out what our satellites are doing and some of these other things that are probably ruining our air more so than what they claim as global warming.
Well, funny you should mention that. I don't have anything on that, but I do have some information on what the EPA is trying to do to roll back some of the restrictions and the stuff that Obama's climate plan was and how it failed. It says the Trump administration is dismantling President Barack Obama's climate legacy piece by piece. And this week, and this article was written yesterday, this week it's taking an axe to the arguably the biggest piece of it all. In an expected move, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Scott Pruitt officially began the process of rolling back the incorrectly named Clean Power Plan. It goes on in here and it says, if the Trump administration is intent on achieving 3% economic growth and rescinding costly regulations that carry negligible climate benefits, and if it is concerned about preserving our energy grid, the power plan is a must-go. It has to go. It says under the Section 111D of the Clean Air Act, the Obama EPA formalized regulations to reduce carbon dioxide from existing power plants. But using a name that surely message tested well, but it wasn't doing what it said. It says the Clean Power Plan had nothing to do with eradicating hazardous pollutants from power generation. It said that the U.S. already has plans on the books to protect Americans' health from emissions that have adverse environmental impact. In other words, they've already got laws on some of that. They didn't need this. It says instead of that the Clean Power Plan regulated carbon dioxide colorless, odorless, non-toxic gas because of its alleged contribution to climate change. It had nothing to do whether it was protecting people or not. It had everything to do with the so worshipped climate change. It says from day one, Obama's clean power plan was fraught with problems, economically, environmentally, and legally. This goes into quite a bit of detail on what that plan was and how it was going to affect even one of the leaders of it, how it was going to affect the economy, but wasn't really going to do any good. And this is coming from, the EPA's idea of flexibility would not have softened the economic blow. It merely meant that Americans would have incurred higher costs through different mechanisms. Environmentally, the climate impact of the power plan would have been pointless. According to the climatologist Paul Knappenberger. This is coming from him. Even if we implement the clean power plan to perfection, the amount of climate change averted over the course of this century amounts to about 0.02 C. This is so small to be scientifically undetectable and environmentally insignificant. This is a leading guy in their fight, and he says this isn't going to do anything. But what it would do, is raise rates for everybody's energy. The cost of energy was going to go up. And it goes into detail on different things here. It says legally the Clean Power Plan was on shaky grounds, to say the least. The regulation grossly exceeded the statutory authority of the EPA, violated the principles of cooperative federalism, and double-regulated existing power plants, which the Clean Air Act prohibits. It goes on how it was kind of illegal and how it was not going to do its purpose, and it was going to hurt economically much, much more. And the very last is what I love the most, because I have really been on a tear about Congress. When we stop and think about it, Congress is the problem. Congress is the swamp. They are the ones that have not been doing their job, regardless of who's in the White House. And it does matter who's in the White House, do not get me wrong. But it's Congress that constantly does not do their job, or they decide to do something that's totally infringes upon our rights. But it says Congress should pass legislation prohibiting the EPA and other agencies from implementing harmful regulations that stunt economic growth and produce futile climate benefits. It goes back to the bureaucracy that we are under, and I blame Congress for the bureaucracy, because they're the ones that implement it. They're the ones that establish these departments. Well, I take that back. The administrations do some of that as well. But everything needs to go through Congress. You know, the House is the purse. They're supposed to take care of the money. And they're constantly doing the things they shouldn't be doing and not doing the things that they should be doing. And right now, and I had an article here somewhere, I've just buried it, I guess, regarding McConnell. Of course, he's trying to, what would I say, explain or himself as to why, here it is, right, it was on top. Why didn't you hand it to me, Melody? It was on top. But Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is attempting to assuage the concerns that conservative activists have raised as late regarding the languid pace of judicial confirmations. That, you know, you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that this is not being talked about. You know, that President Donald Trump he's appointing a lot of judicial nominees. Apparently we have a lot of vacancies, and I'm trying to figure out, why did we have so many vacancies? Because I would just assume that judges keep on judging until they're ousted, these federal judges that are from the states. It says that according to the Judicial Conference of the United States, 149 vacancies currently exist in the federal courts. President Donald Trump has named 50 judicial nominees since taking office, submitting a slate of approximately 10 candidates every month. Thus far, the Senate has confirmed 7, and that's including Justice Neil Gorsuch. Just 7. So they're kind of getting on to McConnell because he's not picking up the pace and getting it done. And, of course, they keep talking about they want to do away with some of the procedures that they do this. But apparently they can't keep up with President Donald Trump because nobody has ever done this before as quickly as he has, appointing these things and trying to take care of business and get things done. They haven't had anybody that worked like that before. And Congress, they're a little bit lazy, so they don't get it done. Anyway, I thought that was interesting on the climate change. And again, it's Congress, and this is Congress, and that's kind of why I put those two together, even though the topic is not related in and of itself. You had mentioned a couple weeks ago about the federal judges that Donald Trump is nominating, and here they are. He's done 50, and they've only got 7 of them.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of wonder if you pull up that EPA ruling and that he's unwinding when initially was getting approved, what was attached to it.
Oh my gosh!
That's probably what.
That'll be huge. Huge. Yeah. That'll be huge. And it will be. I mean, obviously, you and I talk about the economy a lot, and it's not going to fix everything. But these little bitty things, they do help somewhat. They need to free, what this does, the EPA, is they tie the hands behind the back of industries and businesses. They can't hire, they can't survive. They've got all these mandates and regulations to follow. They can't even keep up with it. They have to hire somebody just to follow that stuff. And it's just.
I do have problems. I mean, there does have to be something because you just can't have what the DuPont. The highest cancer rates in the country are along the Chesapeake. Why? Because you had DuPont at the top of the hill dumping their toxic waste into the water. And I guarantee you a lot of that's probably still going on, maybe not to the degree that it once was. So, you do need to have, our water is so precious and it's been so destroyed. And
but we have laws on the books for that.
But so many of the laws are just, all attached to the global warming.
And that's genre. What this was.
Yeah, it's just like, I get accused every day. People still, my family, do you still believe in global warming? Or do you believe in global warming yet after every hurricane? No. I believe in climate change.
I heard someone.
Well, why don't you figure out what the difference is, and then you let me know what you believe,
I heard someone on TV the other night. It's been a week or so, but they were talking about the cycle, and this was a meteorologist, scientist, and this is yes, we have an active hurricane season, and it's been a long time since we've had one, but they have happened before, and it just happened that it's happening when the water is warm out there, and so it's given them more strength.
Plus, we have to separate how much of these events, weather events that we're having, isn't affected by government's intervention of the weather. And they are tinkering with it. I don't know what they can do and what they can't do, but I do believe they're tinkering with it, and they do have a play in it. And I do believe that the cities that have been built, we have these heat zones, we have these, and it does make a difference. It does make a difference to, the jet streams and all that kind of stuff. So
and the
there's
cities
a lot
are hotter.
Involved. It's just, pardon?
The cities are hotter because of the pavements and and I walked out here the other night, and this is an old building, and I'm in a small town, so it's not like we still have pavement, but it's not like it's a big city with lots of pavement. But I walked out there, and I was getting in my car, and I could feel the heat. The evening was nice, but I could feel the heat coming off of the brick wall on the side of this building. You could just feel it. and just think about what that is in a city where everything is heating up. The asphalt. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid and they blacktopped the road there in front of us, and I was always barefoot. And it would get so hot that blacktop would bubble up. Mm-hmm. And that was like hot tar. That's what it basically was hot tar on the bottom of your feet. And you'd think somebody would learn to put their shoes on, but she didn't she didn't learn that very well. But anyway, the heat, the sun heats things up and it stays. Some things are just a better, what do they call it, administrator of the heat, and it keeps it in. And it's, like I said, I could feel the heat as I got in my car. I could just feel it coming off of the brick wall. It felt good to me because I always like heat. But
hey, we have a caller. We have Joe from Arkansas calling. Good morning,
Joe.
Good morning. Yeah, you were talking about the climate change. I had this comment. I had a couple of comments I wanted to make on that. That's this. Okay, back in 1984, I was in Northern California, and I met a man who had been in the Navy, and he was quite a brilliant engineer, and he had worked the Navy's weather modification program. And he showed me this big, thick, in-house, like technical manual book about the Navy's weather modification program. And there had been a lot of extreme and unusual weather in the late 1970s. And he told me that all that had been caused by the Navy's weather modification program that he had worked in. So and I've also heard that the militaries of Britain, Russia, and China also have weather modification programs underway. And so, I'm sure the Navy hasn't stopped its weather modification program, since I talked to that guy. I bet they've increased it, and I bet they can do a lot more now than they were able to do in the 1970s. So I think whenever the media and these left-wingers and so on, talk about global warming and climate change and connect it to a hurricane or some extreme weather event, they ought to be asked, it ought to be demanded of them to explain. How do you know that this is caused by middle-class people driving SUVs and not by some kind of military weather engineering program? Yep. They should have to answer that. So that's one thing I had to say about that. And another thing I wanted to say about it is I once read a scientific paper on the Internet, and this was by a scientist, that just studied the past and, dug into what evidence there was available of how things had been in the past, and it wasn't connecting it to any of the current debates over climate or anything like that. He was just giving the results of his research. And he said that a long, long time ago, some millions of years ago, the levels of carbon dioxide in the air had been between 3,000 and 4,000 parts per million, about 10 times higher than they are now. They're supposed to be about 380 parts per million now. And he said that the climate had been about the same back then as it is now. There had been alternating periods of interglacial and ice age, and apparently the climate was pretty much the same, way back then, with carbon dioxide 10 times higher in the air than it is now. And I've heard Dr. Patrick Moore, who was one of the founders of Greenpeace, but he quit Greenpeace because he said that the other people in Greenpeace were too political and ignoring the science of things too much. And he said that, I heard him say in a radio interview, that carbon dioxide levels in the past has been about as high as 7,000 parts per million, with the weather about the same as it is now. So, that's something else that's rarely brought up, but I think that ought to be, more frequently brought up, that apparently carbon dioxide levels in the past have been much, much higher than they are now, and Earth hasn't burned up or anything like that because of it. So those are a couple of points I wanted to make about this.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, okay,
yes,
thank you.
I thought before they start telling us it's our SUVs, let's see what they've been doing out there on the ship.
It has been going for a very long time. I can remember, and then we'll move on from this, sixth grade teacher, Miss Levin. Then I thought she was in her 60s. Things changed. Maybe she was in her late 50s. But I remember she'd sit in the front of the class. She would pluck her hairs from her chin. But she told us, she says, and this is in the early 60s, my sixth grade class. She told us they were already working on weather modification. And I'll never forget that. because that was that was a pretty, something to say back in the early 60s. She told us that government was already planning and working on ways to control the weather. So it has been going on for a very, very long time. And that was beginning 60s. Not to give away my age, but anyway, so
I can't add anyway. So
a big part of that.
Or subtract.
We're talking. We wanted to talk a little bit about North Korea. About there's a cybersecurity company, FireEye, that says in a new report that hackers linked to North Korea recently targeted U.S. electric power companies with spear phishing emails. Yes. The emails used fake invitations to a fundraiser to target victims. A victim who downloaded the invitation.
So be careful about those fundraisers.
Pardon? Yeah.
I said be careful about those fundraisers.
Yes. A victim who downloaded the invitation attached to the email would be downloading malware into his or her computer network. The FireEye report comes on the heels of an NBCNews.com report in August that U.S. intelligence officials are increasingly worried that North Korea will lash out against enhanced U.S. pressure by using its fearsome cyber capabilities to attack the U.S. You have to question.
Well, I have to. I don't know where your article came from. Mine came from Newsmax, and it says this is a signal that North Korea is a player in the cyber intrusion field, and it is growing in its ability to hurt us, and we need to be careful. And that's coming from the Frank, I don't know how you say his name, Fagluzzi. He's the FBI chief of counterintelligence. I'm sure the Russians made him do it, but it's, we're all doing it. Don't think the United States isn't doing this to other people. We're all doing it. We're all hacking, and I'm thinking just how odd would it be if all of a sudden we went off the grid as far as the Internet was concerned? And they really ought to with all their intelligence. That shouldn't even be up there. I hear the music, and we are going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218, 717-300-1218. You're listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody in the morning, and we will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately. and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
When Sony was hacked into.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. We were talking about North Korea when we went to the break, and just to finish up on that, it says that most American companies have the ability to avoid widespread damage from cyber attacks. Cybersecurity expert Robert Lee said, though some small companies are more vulnerable. That'd be rural America. Some small companies are a little more. That'd be me. I'll be in the dark when the rest of you are got your generators going. I thought this was interesting, this on a different topic, that this is coming from the Daily Caller, and Kevin Daly is the writer of this article. He says the U.S. Supreme Court dismissed a legal challenge to President Donald Trump's travel ban late Tuesday, including that the ban's expiration in September effectively ended the controversy. So they said, nah. The development is a partial victory for the administration. We urge the High Court to dismiss the case after the ban expired in September the 24th, per the terms of the order. A ban on migrant entry from 6 countries and high instances of terror was applied for a 90-day period. In an order issued just after 7:30, the justices remanded the case of the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, the Richmond Base Appeals Court, which upheld the injunction, saying that the ban enforcement, the justices ordered the court to dismiss the case as moot and directed the 4th Circuit to vacate or wipe out its ruling, finding the order unlawful. So he won partially. Anyway, he won partially, and the Supreme Court is upholding, and they're not travel bans. That's a wrong terminology, as we were explained to by Mike Cutler. He said it's not a travel ban. That's not even the title of it. And I find it, especially in the state of California, so hypocritical. And I know I've mentioned this before, but these politicians, it's all a game to them, and it's whatever's making them money at the time, or whatever they think at the time. When we pulled out of Vietnam, and many of the South Vietnamese needed a place to go, and France took many refugees in, and the United States took many refugees in, Joe Biden and the governor, Jerry Brown, were adamantly against allowing these people to come to this nation. And they weren't terrorists. They were people desperate, had to escape to save their lives. And so the hypocrisy is right there. Why were those people not allowed here in their eyes, and yet everyone else is? It doesn't take much to figure out that these guys are playing a game, and they're obstructing the president. They really don't care about the safety of this nation. The Vietnamese that were coming over here, they were not a threat to us in any way, shape, size, or form. These refugees that he's trying to keep out of the nation are from countries that have been threatening us, groups that have been terrorizing across the nation, across the globe. So it's not about the safety of the citizens. So what do you think it's about, Melody?
Well,
it's always about money.
It's always about money, and absolutely it is. And they change to fit in to get elected. They're going to change, and they're chameleons. To whatever gets them reelected. They change, and we've seen, particularly ones that have been in the, politics for so long. They have histories, and you can go back and see how they changed. Heck, even Hillary has changed with some of the things that she said. And I'm certainly no fan of Hillary. I'm just pointing out to the fact that, she'll change. She'll even say something conservative in order to get elected or to get the vote or to do what she needs to get done. And they lie, they cheat, and they steal. So
they are corrupt to the hilt. They are corrupt.
But you know what? We allow them to be corrupted. We allow them to stay corrupted.
I mentioned yesterday, I talked about Congress. I'm really kind of on a tear with Congress right now. I'm really fed up with them. And Democrats and Republicans alike, the Democrats, I've pretty much given up on them. They're socialists. Let's get the Republicans taken over too, because they're no better. We can see that with what they're doing to the president and denying what the people wanted when they elected him. And I mentioned yesterday that they've all taken a knee against the president, with the exception of just a handful. That's why they wouldn't repeal Obamacare. That's why they wouldn't pass anything in that respect. That's why they are allowing the obstruction of his appointees. That's why they continue to do what they do, because they have taken a knee. So when we elected a president and we thought, well, this guy, he's an outsider, maybe he can get some things done. We didn't trust him 100%, but maybe he can get some things done. But the team we gave him, they're taking a knee. And the only ones who can really drain the swamp are the American people. And it just absolutely irks me to see what Congress is doing, because they're the ones that stay. Presidents come and go, but Congress is there. And it really is an eye-opener. If you haven't opened them already, and I know most of our listeners have, it's an eye-opener that you can absolutely see that they don't like the Republic, they don't like the Constitution, and they don't like the President, and they're not happy with us for electing him. So that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, and it's certainly true, So, and when we talk about the people, and we're talking about taking the knee, and we only have a couple of minutes left of the program, and this article, and I don't know, maybe you discussed it on your programs. I just came across this today, and I'm in Maryland, and I knew there was issues, but I really didn't pay much attention to it. To me, I'm finances, so that's more. But more than 70,000 people signed a petition calling for the statue of Ray Lewis that sits outside the M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore to be removed after the former player knelt during the national anthem. The petition, which has 74,652 signatures, calls for the statue of the Baltimore Ravens football legend to be removed for Lewis's refusal to stand for the national anthem and respect the country. The Ravens players ruffled the feathers of many fans after he did that. And I get this. Lewis's mother, his friends, and other family members gathered by the statue on Saturday to pray and kneel in support of the football player after learning of the petition. You can't erase 17 years of history. Excuse me? You want to erase our country's history, hundreds of years of history? You consider a football player our history? Excuse me?
The hypocrisy is just so obvious.
Do people even understand what they're saying? You can't erase two Super Bowls. You can't? You're not erasing the Super Bowls. You're erasing the guy who's taking a kneeling because he's disrespecting and has no patriotic bone in his body. And
they're not erasing him. They're just taking down a commemoration to him.
But yet people agree to tear down all other kinds of stuff. Christopher Columbus has to have armed guards 24/7 in New York City. I mean, it's just, I just saw that.
I did not see that article. I would appreciate it if you send it to me. I may bring that up on my Friday show and talk about that on CSC Talk Radio. That is just, her words. Do they not just almost like a wind throw you back? It's like, seriously.
I mean, are you kidding?
Seriously. So we're removing all of the history. These people that we were trying to not necessarily honor for the Civil War, but for their, Lee was more than just a Civil War general. I hear music.
I do too.
Look what we did.
Save that
we
for
got
another
onto
day.
a good We hear music. It means our Power Talk is losing its power for the day. So,
and folks, I want to say this, Beth, and folks, I want to tell the listeners to give Discount Gold and Silver a call, 1-800-375-4188. We have 1 ounce random dated gold eagles, 1 ounce, for $25 over spot. So we only have a few of them left. So give us a call. It's a great deal if you're looking for 1 ounce American Gold Eagles.
Appreciate all that you do. You've been listening to Power Talks.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.